Preface. The sexual scene seems to be in a constant state of flux. Every year, there are new advances in the prevention and treatment of AIDS. New methods of contraception are developed and made available. New discoveries are made about causes and treatment of sexual disorders. Many things have changed in the new edition of this textbook as well. At the same time, we have retained the features of this book that users have praised over more than 2 decades. First, we will describe the successful features that have kept in place. Then, we will provide an overview of new features in this edition. This text has a unique combination of 3 features that are of utmost importance in a textbook: a writing style that is accessible and appealing to the student, coverage that is comprehensive and interdisciplinary, and excellent scholarship. Our goal in this text is to provide the best in all 3 of these features: accessibility, comprehensiveness, and scholarship. This approach has been well received in previous editions, and we have worked to strengthen these features in the 7th edition. Plan of the book. First and foremost, we've tried to keep in mind at all times that students want to learn about sexuality and that our job as writers is to help them learn. We've covered topics completely in as clear a presentation as possible, and we've made a special effort to use language that will enlighten rather than intimidate. Because students so often know only slang terminology regarding sex, we have included slang terms in parentheses following definitions of scientific sexual terms to connect the 2 terminologies. In the selection and preparation of illustrations for the book, the goal has always been to convey as much information as possible, simply and clearly. The book assumes no prior college courses in biology, psychology, or sociology. It is designed as an introduction following the 3 major objectives of our own courses in human sexuality. 1. To provide practical information needed for everyday living, information about sexual anatomy, contraception, and sexually transmitted disease, for example, and to deal with problems in sexual functioning, such as erection problems or inability to have an orgasm. To help students feel more comfortable with thinking and talking about sex, both to minimize their own personal anguish about a tension-causing topic and to help them become responsible decision makers in an important aspect of their lives. 3. To familiarize students with methods used in research on sexuality, and particularly with problems inherent in some of these methods, so that they can read research reports critically and intelligently. Our own courses are surveys designed to provide students with a broad range of information about sexuality. Reflecting that approach, this book is intended to be complete and balanced in its coverage so that students will want to save it after the course for use as a reference in future years. The background of the Hyde and Delamater team is quite compatible with the interdisciplinary approach. Janet Hyde's original graduate training was in psychology, with specialties in behavior genetics and statistics. Later, her interests expanded to include psychology of women and gender roles. As a result, her expertise is in the biological and psychological viewpoints. John de Lamater's graduate training was in psychology and sociology, so his expertise includes sociological and cultural viewpoints. The team's goal has been to cover all aspects of sexuality with integrity. Nonetheless, for instructors who feel they lack the time to deal with all the material or who are not prepared to cover certain topics, the chapters have been written to be fairly independent. For example, any of the following chapters could be omitted without loss of continuity. Chapter 13, Attraction, Intimacy, and Love. Chapter 17, Sexual Coercion. Chapter 21, Ethics, Religion, and Sexuality. Chapter 22, Sex and the Law. And Chapter 23, Sexuality, Education. Certainly, there are some aspects of sexuality today that are very serious. Nonetheless, it is our belief that in modern American culture, we are in danger of taking some aspects of sexuality far too seriously. We may not be serious about it in the same way as were our Victorian ancestors, but we are serious nonetheless. Serious about whether we're using the best and most up-to-date sexual techniques. Serious about whether our partners are having as many orgasms as possible, and so on. To counteract this tendency, we've tried to use a light touch with occasional bits of humor in this book. We're not advocating that we treat sex in a flippant or frivolous manner, or that we ignore serious issues such as STDs and sexual coercion, but rather we keep it all in perspective and remember that there are some very funny things about sex. One thing we are serious about is the quality of research. The quality of sex research is highly variable, to put it mildly. Journalists think they are sex researchers if they have interviewed 10 people and written a book about it. We see other sexuality textbooks that cite an article from the local newspaper with equal authority to a rough-read journal article from the New England Journal of Medicine or the Journal of Sex Research. And readers have to do a lot of detective work to find out what the real source is for a statement. We believe that it is our responsibility as textbooks authors to sift through available studies and not cite all of them, but rather present those that are of the best quality. We are pleased to observe that the quality of sex research improves every decade. In this edition, we were able to prune out many studies of lesser quality and rely more on recent studies that are of excellent qualities in terms of sampling, research design, and measurements. The 7th edition. The 7th edition represents a major revision. What's new about the 7th edition? Two changes are the most substantial and pervasive: a focus on sexuality in the media and integration of the World Wide Web. Each of these changes is detailed in the section below. Beyond these new themes, data and theories have been updated throughout. There is a new focus box in Chapter 5 on the debate over the treatment of intersex individuals. Chapter 8, Contraception and Abortion, and Chapter 20, Sexually Transmitted Diseases, have been updated thoroughly with new statistics and new research findings. In the discussion of sexual disorders and therapy, a cognitive physiological model is emphasized and cognitive behavioral therapy is presented, in contrast to older methods of behavior therapy pioneered by Masters and Johnson. The discussion of communication, Chapter 10, now includes a section on gender differences in communication. Sexuality and the media. A new focus throughout the book is on sexuality in the media. We begin in Chapter 1 by including the media alongside religion and science.